Hi, I'm Summer from GAMSAT Science, and today I'm going to chat about how to score in the 90s in GAMSAT Section 3. So what is GAMSAT Section 3? This is the Reasoning in Biological and Physical Sciences section, and it contains 75 multiple choice questions to be completed in 150 minutes. The questions are essentially problem-solving exercises that are themed around the basic sciences. So in general, 40% of the test focuses on biology, 40% on chemistry, and 20% on physics, although these percentages can vary. Section 3 aims to test our problem-solving and reasoning ability, skills that translate across to healthcare. So these skills allow us to put together a patient's symptoms and medical history to figure out the best diagnosis and treatment plan. So there are four key skills that you need to succeed in Section 3. The first is interpreting visual information. So this might be in the form of graphs, flowcharts, or tables. The second is recognizing patterns effectively within these figures or in a descriptive passage. The third is manipulating numbers and equations, which involves some general math performed without a calculator. And the fourth is complex verbal reasoning, so using logic or reasoning to make sense of a written passage with a science theme. And I'll discuss each of these in a bit more detail. So some questions require us to interpret visual information. We need to break down the formula, graph, or figure and examine it step by step, going from the title to the legend to each axis and then to the data displayed. And we want to be looking for general patterns, like an overall increasing or decreasing trend. So here, as an example, we have a triangular graph, which are often seen in Section 3. And so we'd approach this by thinking, okay, what do each of these axes represent? So percentages of clay, silt, and sand. And then we'd have a look at the different variables and their proportions, along with any patterns or trends. And we'd use these observations to approach answering the questions. So pattern recognition is vital to many types of Section 3 questions. So GAMSAT questions are often written to look like basic sciences, like organic chemistry, but in reality, we do not need to know that much about the topic to answer the question. So all of the details should be in the prompt in front of us. And the aim here is to identify trends, repeating shapes, or other patterns in the information and use that to answer the question. So some questions will require manipulation of numbers and equations performed without a calculator. You generally need math skills up to year 10 level. So these include basic operations, equations, fractions, unit conversions, etc. And for all questions, but especially the long written passages, it's important to read the question carefully and properly and pick out the key information. So GAMSAT question stems often include excess information to distract from the true task at hand. And the key is in reading the questions carefully and completely, and then identifying what is important for answering each question. And if it isn't visual, you can make it visual. So if you're given a paragraph describing how a specific enzyme interaction works, rather than trying to rack your brain to remember if you studied this, just draw out what's written in a simple flow chart. And all of the information you need to answer the questions should be provided in this prompt. And the aim here is to be able to identify that relevant information and then piece it together. And sometimes making it visual just helps us see that information more clearly. So some final tips. So the priority is to learn the fundamentals and then use reasoning skills to work it out like a puzzle from there, rather than trying to memorize chemistry and physics formulas. GAMSAT aims to test your problem-solving abilities, not your ability to rote learn. Now, it's important to break down each STEM and remember that the information you need should be included there. So there should be little, if any, prior knowledge required to answer the questions. And as long as you have the underlying skills in interpreting graphs, recognizing patterns, mathematical ability, and verbal reasoning, you will succeed in Section 3. Now, time management is huge for Section 3, so many people find themselves with 10 or more unanswered questions at the end. And this makes it very important to prioritize questions and be aware of how long you're spending on a given STEM. And if a STEM is taking too long, it's better to move on and come back to it later, rather than risk not finishing the exam. It's equally important to do several timed practice exams before the big day. And the key with Section 3, as with all the sections, is practice. So you need to learn what GAMSAT wants you to know about the sciences. And more importantly, you need to understand how to approach the puzzles that GAMSAT gives us. It's very important to take notes on your mistakes that you can learn from these. So whenever you get a question wrong, you want to really be thinking about whether it was misunderstanding the question itself, an error in the maths, or piecing together the information incorrectly. And whatever the mistake was, just take note of it and practice that skill so that you can maximize your score. In terms of study materials, a lot of resources online focus on teaching the sciences to a high level of detail. But as we've seen here, GAMSAT Section 3 is primarily a problem-solving exercise. So the best way to study is with practice questions. And your main source should be the ACER practice exams and questions. The Des O'Neill Section 3 book is also an excellent resource with an entire chapter dedicated to problem solving. Although keep in mind that the questions can sometimes be harder than the exam itself. And to make sure that your math skills are where they need to be, MCAT Maths Without a Calculator resources are helpful. It's good to study with a friend so that you can compare your approaches to the questions, and one-on-one tutoring can also be a good option if you want to enhance specific skills or refine your overall approach. With enough practice and preparation time, you'll be able to maximize your scores. Good luck.